Hello, this is Michael Buckoff from BetterToeflScores.com, and today I am privileged to talk to a student from Turkey. Her name is Yesim, and I'll tell you a bit about her. When I first met her a few months ago, she was doing a placement test that we're giving at Cal State University San Bernardino, and she scored the highest on this placement test of any student I had ever seen in the last 10 years. In fact, she has not taken the Toefl iBT yet, but if she took this test, I'm pretty confident that her score would be above 100. So she has extremely high skills, and today, during this interview, I'm going to ask her some questions about vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, listening, speaking, writing, and reading. And hopefully, if you're listening or watching this video, I hope that you can get some good ideas on some things that you can do to become stronger in your English proficiency. It doesn't matter if you want to take the TOEFL test or you want to be a successful student in a university in which English is spoken. I think that we can learn from Yesim's experiences. Okay, first of all, Yesim, I'm going to ask you a little bit about your background, maybe about any English study that you've done before coming here.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Well, in elementary school, I actually didn't have any English education. My English education started when I started high school. Before high school, we have this year which is basically dedicated to learning English, but it's hard learning English in Turkey because you have Turkish teachers, so they know Turkish, so it's hard speaking English with them. And after the preparation class of high school, most of the students drop the English they learned, and then they forget it because it's not something you can always remember. But I didn't drop it because this is actually funny, but I love Harry Potter books and I wanted to read them in their own original language. So I started reading a lot of things on the internet, but for exactly like 2 years I had to carry a dictionary with me because there was a lot of words that I didn't understand. But after that 2 years I started guessing the words from the sentence, from the paragraph, maybe from the whole page.
Now this brings me to my first question, Yesim, is vocabulary. A lot of students are probably wondering, what are some things I can do to improve my vocabulary? So one, if I take the TOEFL test, I can score high, or if I go to university classes, I'll be able to understand what I read and what I listen to. So what are some suggestions that you have to help students improve in their vocabulary skills?
Well, what I did was not exactly, studying basically on vocabulary. While I was reading a lot of books and a lot of things, what I saw, on the internet, on the TV, on the books, booklets, whatever, I started remembering the vocabulary, and it helped me a lot. But every student has different ways. Sometimes I would write sometimes I would write words in big papers and then hang them on my walls in my bedroom, so I would see them every day, and then I would remember them because it helps a lot. And sometimes I would put them on my mirror because I always look in the mirror, and then they are there, so you see them every day. This helped me a lot.
The TOEFL iBT doesn't have a grammar section. However, it's important to be able to apply grammar on both the speaking and writing sections of the test. Now, Yesim, in my TOEFL iBT class, you scored on the integrated speaking section. I gave you a 30 out of 30 points, and you also scored 30 out of 30 on the integrated writing section. So obviously you have pretty good control of your own grammar skills, and particularly being able to apply your grammar usage to both speaking and writing. So my next question concerns grammar skills. So what advice do you have of students who are preparing for the TOEFL iBT? How can they better improve their grammar skills so that they can do better on the writing and the speaking sections of the test?
Well, you can know a lot of vocabulary, but you have to know some grammar to make sense with that vocabulary. So what I did was, I would watch a lot of movies, maybe in Turkish, and then I would turn them and on the DVD and make them subtitles or maybe only English, and try to imitate the people speaking there and try to make sense with my sentences. How could I, use them together? How could I make sense and, make them, in a sensible way, in sensible sentences. So what I was imitating the people, and sometimes, it's hard, I know it's not good to just write some things and then like verb 3 are plus things plus this, and it's hard, but you have to do it.
Like grammar, there's no pronunciation section on the TOEFL test. However, it is important for students to have clear pronunciation during the speaking, especially as they complete these 6 speaking tasks. It will be part of their grade. That brings me to my next question. Yesim, what are some things that you think students can do that can help them improve in their pronunciation skills so they can have good intelligibility for the TOEFL test?
I guess I was lucky because in my school at Turkey there was an exchange student. She was from Michigan, and I started, being friends with her, and she helped me a lot. I don't mind when people stop me and say like, this is not the way it sounds, this is not the way it's pronounced. So I just try to, speak it like in their way. So I had to speak it like 4 times, 5 times, sometimes in the mirror, looking at myself, what I do wrong, what is their lips, how they move their. I wanted to make the same expression with them.
So far we've talked about vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. Now let's take a look at the core areas of the TOEFL test, beginning with listening. There's a lot of listening on the test. You got a 60 to 90 minute listening section. There's listening on the speaking section. There's listening on the writing section. And this is actually the next question I want to ask you right now. Obviously, you have very strong listening skills. I've tested your listening skills. They're pretty well perfect. So what suggestions do you have for students in terms of how they can improve their listening skills for the TOEFL test? What kinds of things do you recommend they do to prepare?
Well, it might sound simple, but taking notes is important, but there are some steps how to do while taking notes too, like get the main word. Sometimes I overdo it, but basically what I have to do is like get the only one word maybe, but then you can remember the whole sentences, maybe whole paragraph, by just looking at the one word, and then it will really help you with your speaking, so that you can, combine the listening passage, the reading passage, whatever which is given to you, and then make a good speech out of it.
And from what I can tell about your listening skills right now, you have excellent listening skills. I'm always impressed when I see your notes when we're doing speaking and writing tasks in our TOEFL iBT class, that you have a point-by-point, a very clear organization of ideas, and it's very easy for you to use those notes later on to answer questions that might relate to academic lectures, academic discussions, campus-related conversations, and even you can use your notes for speaking and writing on the TOEFL as well. Now this brings me to my next question. Let's talk about these speaking tasks. These tasks are pretty tricky. Speaking tasks 1 and 2 are independent speaking tasks. Speaking tasks 3, 4, 5, and 6 are tasks which require a student to use his or her notes to answer questions about reading passages, lectures, campus-related conversations, and so on. So this is kind of my question. What kinds of things do you think students can do to better prepare themselves for the 6 speaking tasks on the TOEFL iBT test?
Well, if you don't know the language that much, it's possible, even if you don't know the language, that you can ramble in that language. So I would advise them to make sense and try to make sense. Like, try to remember what you organize in your head, because it's hard to answer when some people ask you what your hobbies are. But you can just make some points. Like, one point is that I like swimming, what I like about swimming. So just make sense, don't ramble, because it will take your time, and then it will leave you less time to impress the teacher.
And you got a good idea there about rambling. It's not good to ramble. Now, if anybody in my audience is not sure what rambling means, ramble means to speak, but without having really any purpose or any organization to the ideas that are being spoken. Obviously, during the Toefl speaking task, you don't want to ramble. You need to focus on what the speaking task is, make sure you answer the question, and give specific reasons and examples to help support your response. This is very important to get a high score on the Toefl test. Now, this brings me to the next area, which also involves your an ability to organize ideas very well, which is writing. Now, Yesim, you are a great writer, I got to admit. I've been reading your independent writing tasks, your integrated writing tasks in my Toefl iBT class, and you do a great job on organizing your notes and structuring those notes in terms of using them to write a coherent essay. So, since there are two different writing tasks, you have an independent writing task, in which case students get about 30 minutes to write it, and they have an integrated writing task when they get 20 minutes to write that one. My question is, what types of things do you recommend students do to prepare for the writing section of the Toefl iBT?
First of all, I would advise them to make an outline, because it really helps. And it really helps to make a thesis statement before you start writing, because if you don't make the thesis statements, you start writing something out of your mind, but it doesn't make sense on the paper, and when the teacher reads it, you would probably give you less mark than you're thinking. So first, organize it. For example, I'll write in the introduction, I'll write this, in the development, like in 2 paragraphs, and then the conclusion, I would conclude and make a good sentence out of what I wrote in the first 3 paragraphs, and then write the conclusion in a sensible way, so it would help you a lot.
Alright, let's talk about the last area of the Toefl iBT that I'd like to talk about today. Is the reading section. The reading section, wow. You got 5 to 6 800-word reading passages. It may take some students anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes. At least that's how much time the Toefl iBT will give them. There's vocabulary questions, there's inference questions, there's detail questions, organization questions. There's questions that involve students completing charts. Students also have to complete graphs in terms of answering these questions, and it can be pretty tough answering these questions on the reading. Now, you mentioned earlier about reading Harry Potter books. Now, I cannot say enough about the importance of extensive reading. You told me in the interview that you chose, when you were in Turkey, to actually read these books in the original language of English instead of reading them in the translated version of your own country in Turkish. So that was actually very good practice, in the sense that you're practicing extensive reading every day, and you're trying to understand new vocabulary in the new language. This is extremely important. Now, we also know that in addition to the reading section, there's reading passages on the speaking part of the test, especially with speaking tasks 3 and 4. And we also know that the writing has a reading section. Now, I've also noticed that in my classes, you've done a pretty good job in terms of reading passages summarizing down the main ideas, and then speaking about those ideas, and then writing about those ideas. So I guess my question relates to reading now. What are some things that you think students can do to help prepare them for the reading section of the test?
First of all, the great English skills doesn't happen overnight. So what I had to do for like 4 years before I came here was read all the time, because there's a big time that you don't get what you're reading, but after a while you start, understanding what it is written. And some of the things I read was really advanced, but there are some words that you get. There are a lot of words you don't get, but you can just try to understand. You can just try to guess, just guess. No one would punish you about it. So if you take the Toefl test and then get a lower mark, don't worry about it, and then take another one on the next year, because in that year you don't know how many things you can do and how you can improve your English in a great way.
I really appreciate Yesim, you taking the time to talk to Better Toefl Scores and to give some of my audience some great ideas on how they can improve in their Toefl iBT skills. And with your last statement about reading, you talked about how a little bit each day, and it reminds me of a saying in American culture, and the saying is, Rome was not built in a day. For example, it takes a long time to build a city. There's also a saying that says practice makes perfect, which relates to your statement about sometimes you may have to take the Toefl test 2 or 3 times before you actually get the score you like. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, and I wish you the best of luck. And I'm sure whatever you want to do with your life, you are going to be very, very successful, because you surely are a very hard worker when it comes to learning a language. Good luck to you.